20 kilometers per hour. It's a high payback for Piastri, giving Norris the win at the Sao Paulo sprint a few weeks ago. Either way, it gives McLaren a greater advantage at the front of the field. 30 points the gap to Ferrari as they continue to try and seal their first Constructors' Championship since 1998. They'll need a 1-2 in the Grand Prix, plus the fastest lap to do that. But before we race, we qualify, and that is what lies ahead of us. And calling all the action alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, is the McLaren Formula E driver, Sam Bird, the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson, and our eyes and ears on the ground, it's Rosanna Tennant.
Oh, good evening. Yeah, it's local time. It's nearly 9 o'clock at night. People have managed to have some dinner, have a little bit of time to wander around the paddock, and now we find ourselves just about to enjoy qualifying. But I think a few journalists thought it was time to pack up and go home after the sprint race. Such is the strange schedule that we're running here this weekend in Doha. But the paddock is busy. Lots of people wandering around, trying to get selfies with drivers as they rush to the garage to get ready for this power hour here in the desert. And the lights came on many hours ago. The sun set around about 4:30, and there was that beautiful pink-purple hue in the sky, and it's got a lot chillier as well. Not quite as breezy as it was for the sprint race, so that drop in the wind is obviously going to alter things a little bit during this qualifying session, but it's still chilly. 19 degrees the air temperature, and the track temperature 22, which may not sound that cold given the temperatures in the UK at the moment, but it does feel a little bit nippy here because, of course, the desert just it feels a bit drier, I guess, the cold out here.
Yeah, it certainly is. Much removed from the conditions of the Qatar Grand Prix last year, now hosted a couple of weeks later to try and placate those extremely hot temperatures we had last year, with some drivers really struggling and having to bail out of the Grand Prix early. So much were they having to deal with those temperatures. But this track, as I say, just over 5.4 kilometers, 16 turns, 6 to the left, 10 to the right. It's high, medium speed corners, long duration corners, a smooth surface. Sam, what is the key to getting the most out of a lap around this Lusail International circuit?
Well, it's all high and medium speed corners, Harry. It's quite a fast-flowing circuit, one that really tends to suit McLaren, and now the Mercedes has come to the fore as well. With these cooler temperatures we saw in Vegas, and with this corner configuration that we see in Qatar, I definitely think that George Russell could be a shout for pole position this evening.
Yeah, Andrew Benson, the BBC's F1 correspondent. We've had a precursor almost to what we might expect in the Grand Prix. We knew McLaren would be strong. They continue to be so, with Piastri and Norris getting that 1-2. But as Sam said, George Russell, could he continue to prove a thorn in the McLaren side in this qualifying session?
Well, he only missed pole yesterday by a few hundreds, 67 thousandths, I think it was in the end. And he had a little glitch with his engine because he caught it by surprise by taking one of the fastest corners flat out for the first time, which meant he didn't get the hybrid boost, so maybe pole was there for him even yesterday. The thing is, though, Harry, although Russell he was definitely quicker than Piastri in the sprint, we don't know how fast Norris could have gone, and the teams have all been able to change their car setups between the end of the sprint and the start of qualifying, so we don't know how the pace order is going to set up. It does look though that like Red Bull are struggling. They're definitely the fourth of the top 4 teams, and Lewis Hamilton's having a bad weekend. Can he try and find some balance in his car to give himself a bit of a boost this evening?
Sound you just heard was the Alpine making its way out to join what is probably one of the most expensive traffic jams you will see, headed by the Mercedes of George Russell, just waiting for the green light to come on at the end of the pit lane. Traffic management, Sam, could be a bit of an issue in this qualifying session. We saw a lot in practice, in particular on Friday, how quickly a fast car can approach a gaggle of slow cars trying to find their ideal bit of track. It's not easy to jump out of the way here.
No, it's very, very tricky to jump out of the way. Plus, modern Formula One cars, you need between 6 and 7 seconds of clear air in front of you just to make sure that you don't get affected by that turbulent air from the car in front. We've just actually seen pictures of the cars at the end of the pit lane. Now, George Russell is heading that queue. George Russell has opted for the medium compound tyre for his opening few laps. Such was his pace yesterday that he thinks that potentially he could get through on the medium. There's only probably 3 or 4 cars that could do that. George Russell is one of them.
Yeah, and what they're doing there is it's a situation with tyre strategy. Ideally, in qualifying, you would want 2 runs in each session on the soft tyre, but you don't have 6 sets of new soft tyres to do. So you have to play around. Do you try and use only 1 set of softs in one session? Do you start one session with used tyres? Or in the case of Russell, do you try the medium tyres at the start of the qualifying? You might be able to get through Q1 on them, but if you don't, it doesn't really matter because you've saved that extra run on the soft tyres. Then you've got 5 clean runs on the new softs for the rest of qualifying.
Yeah, it looks like a few have opted for those soft tyres as well as they peel out of the pit lane. The green light is on and straight out on the track. George Russell does indeed head the field. 18 minutes and counting, already now to 16 minutes and 52 seconds. Rosanna.
And George Russell was frustrated, wasn't he, at the end of that sprint race just a few hours ago, not making that pass on Oscar Piastri. Frustrated then, but of course the mindset shifts completely now from a race format to a qualifying format. And Sam, it's interesting, isn't it, because the cars will feel different. Of course, lighter fuel loads now for this hour.
Nobody is moving, it's crazy.
That's Charles Leclerc saying nobody is moving. It's crazy as they all try and trundle out of the pit lane. That's something we've seen time and time again this season as they all try and basically create their own gaps in the pit lane to allow themselves space on the circuit once they start their flying laps.
Yeah, they're just creeping down the pit lane. A few of them now managing to get out, but it has been, as you say, the most expensive traffic jam here in Qatar. But Sam, it's going to be different, isn't it? Because the cars are going to feel so different to what they were feeling like at the end of the sprint race, albeit, of course, they'd have been burning off the fuel during those 19 laps of the sprint. But how do you approach it then, both from a mindset point of view, but also how you handle the car?
Yeah, remember, Rosanna, they've already done this once before this weekend. So although yes, they've had a race in between, they've already had one qualifying session. So I think the drivers will be dialed in. Make no question of that. They'll all be dialed in, ready to put in fast times. The track might be slightly different to yesterday, for sure, more rubbered in. But yeah, they would have made setup adjustments, and I'm expecting some quick times this evening.
Talk of traffic, though, and feeling a little bit for Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. Was just about to start his flying lap and came across a Williams and the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc heading into turn 1. They were on the inside, but it was enough to put Magnussen off, and as he came out of the exit, ran wide on his first flying lap. Actually just getting another look at it. It's enough to sort of throw you off your game a bit, but actually it was mid-corner, Sam, that Magnussen just had a snap on the wheel.
Yeah, fully loaded lateral G-force at that point, and he's just had a little snap, and that little snap makes the car wander wider as the car gets closer to the exit, which is why you saw him dip 2 wheels in the gravel. That would have cost him a few tenths.
185th Grand Prix weekend for Kevin Magnussen, and perhaps his penultimate and last in the sport as he makes way for an all-new driver lineup at the Haas Formula 1 team next year. This is the sound, though, of Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, another man who will leave his team at the end of the season. He's just making his way now on his first flyer on the soft tyre through the left-hander of turn 2, the slight right-hand kink of 3 before a short straight beckons, a touch on the brakes at the 50-metre board, into the right-hander of 4 and 5. It's a double right-hander that leads you to the hairpin of turn 6, through into the left-hander, 3rd gear corner, up into 4th, 5th, another short kind of straight. Well, it's a curve, really. It curves up towards 7, and then through the sweeping S's of 8 and 9 as you get into the second part of this lap. Fastest of anybody so far through the first sector for the Spaniard.
Yeah, he's on a set of used soft tyres in comparison to quite a few of the runners that, with RB and Williams, people like that, going out on the new soft. Ferrari have opted to use a set of used for this first run.
One pole so far in 2024 for Carlos Sainz, and his best qualifying round this Losail International Circuit has been 7th back in 2021, and actually he bails out of his flying lap right at the very end, comes around the final corner and peels straight into the pit lane. His teammate Charles Leclerc is just approaching the final corner now. Will the Monegasque driver do the same, I wonder? No, he will finish off the lap, comes across the line. What's it to be for Charles Leclerc? It's second fastest in these early stages, a 1:22.4. The field currently headed by Lance Stroll's Aston Martin on the soft tyre, a 1:22.3. It's Stroll, Leclerc, Alonso, Perez, Hülkenberg, the top 5. Verstappen's out there now, fastest of anybody through the first and middle sectors. Still waiting, though, for the majority of the field to set their first flying laps. Norris to the top, a 1:22.029. But Verstappen is looking fast this under this early stages of the session, at least, after what was a pretty miserable sprint race for the Dutchman.
Yeah, I think what we've just seen there is the difference between a new set of softs and a fresh set of softs. You know, the McLaren softs would have only done probably 1 push lap, maybe 2, but a set of new compared to used is a noticeable difference.
Well, I don't know. The problem, Sam, is that we can't rely on the data on the app, because sometimes it's wrong, but it says that Verstappen's on used tyres as well. So
interesting.
It's a surprise, because if that is true, then Red Bull have found a miraculous amount of pace, because they were talking after the sprint as if they were completely lost this weekend and we're going to be going nowhere. But let's just see how qualifying plays out, and we'll get a better answer on that.
Max Verstappen really not happy with the balance of his Red Bull whatsoever during that sprint race. But as per the rules this year, you can make changes after the sprint race and between the qualifying session starting. Parc Fermé reopens, so you are able to make some setup changes without incurring a penalty. Lewis Hamilton will be hoping to have made some changes to improve his chances. Has been really dejected so far this weekend and has been outpaced all weekend so far by his teammate George Russell. He's rounding the final corner now on his first flyer. Let's see what he does over the line. It's enough for 4th fastest. It's a 1:22.2, fastest of anybody in the final sector, but it's his teammate, the sound you're hearing now, George Russell, who has a best qualifying round here on the front row of 2nd back in 2023 for the Grand Prix last year. Rounds the final corner, fastest of anybody in the first sector, fastest in the middle sector, fastest overall by almost 0.2 of a second. It's a 1:21.519 on the soft tyre for George Russell's Mercedes.
It's not often that you see that, is it? Lewis Hamilton 7/10 of his teammates' time. I mean, George Russell's really dialed in round here, but we've seen a very dejected Lewis Hamilton, haven't we, this weekend? Really not a happy chap. Used to winning races, obviously the most winning driver in Formula One history, and to be comprehensively beaten like this is something that he's not experienced, I don't think, ever in his career.
Well, he'll be hoping for better fortunes next year when he is in the seat that is currently occupied by Carlos Sainz, who bailed out on his first lap. He's going again, though, but down on time in the middle sector. Norris is going again as well. He's fallen down to 3rd, but he's fastest of anybody in the first sector. Meanwhile, Sergio Perez plumb last in the sprint earlier on. They elected to change the front wing during that race and have made some changes once again to the Mexican's car, hoping to try and unlock some sort of performance. Sainz comes across the line. He goes 4th fastest, half a second away from Russell's time. We'll see what Sergio Perez has got to offer. It's only enough for 7th place, losing time in the final sector. Meanwhile, Lando Norris is coming to the end of his lap as well. What's it got? Manages to improve his time. Half a tenth away from George Russell. Can't pit his compatriot. It's Russell and Norris in these early stages of Q1. P1 and P2, of course, a reminder, will lose the bottom 5 drivers. 16th downwards. It's currently occupied by Zhou Guanyu, Liam Lawson, Franco Colapinto, and still waiting on the first competitive lap time set for the 2 Alpine drivers, Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly, yet to get a marker on the board.
So with 9 minutes to go, I would hedge a bet that Russell, Norris and Verstappen are safe. Everybody else, I would say, with Lance Stroll going up to P4, I would hedge a bet that everybody else is not safe. Alonso up to P3. So with that lap, I think most people will want to run again.
Now, is that tyre offset or track evolution?
Track evolution. Track evolution is massive, and the track is only going to ramp up as more rubber goes down and as the night goes on.
Also got some encouraging news if you like Lewis Hamilton. He was actually matching Russell in the first and final sectors, but he got some traffic in the middle sector which delayed him, so maybe, just maybe, there's a chink of light for Hamilton there.
Alonso, fastest of anybody in the first sector, and talk about track evolution, Gasly in the Alpine. That is littered spotted in pink and black, now puts his way up into 5th. We'll see what Esteban Ocon has got, his teammate currently out there on a lap at the moment, or just coming towards the end of a lap, or starting a lap, I should say, for Esteban Ocon. We'll see what he's got. Coming to the end of the lap, actually, he bailed out of that one in the end, so something going on there for the other side of the Frenchman's garage. He's 6/10 down on Franco Colapinto, who is down in 19th right now. 7 minutes and 43 seconds on the clock. Russell, Norris, Alonso, Verstappen, Gasly. That's your top 5. And it's Stroll, Sainz, Piastri, Hamilton, Perez, the top 10. Charles Leclerc is down in 11th on an outlap right now. Then it's Bottas, Lawson, Tsunoda, and Alex Albon, the top 15. At this stage, they would all progress through, and we would lose the 2 Haas cars of Hülkenberg and Magnussen, Joe Guan Yu and the Sauber, Colapinto's Williams, and Esteban Ocon's Alpine. And that noise you just heard was Kevin Magnussen going wide and clouting over the curb and making a little bit of a mess of the underside of his Haas. That won't do it any good. Haas, crucially, trying to keep themselves holding on to 6th place in the Constructors' Championship, which they managed to gain a bit more of an advantage after the sprint race, with Nico Hülkenberg picking up some points. But right now they're behind their major competitors, the 2 RB cars and one of the Alpines. Gasly finds himself all the way up in 5th. Okay, so we get this little lull in the middle of Q1 while we wait for the final flyers to be set. This is the sound of Nico Hülkenberg coming down that start-finish straight, just over a kilometre, reaching speeds of almost 320 kilometres an hour before he slams on the brakes into the arcing right-hander of turn 1, and then the U-shaped left-hander of turn 2. Then there's a slight kink through the right-hander of turn 3, getting up through 6th gear into 7th as you now make your way towards a double right-hander, braking just after the 50-metre board through turns 4 and 5 as you start to come back on yourself into the left-hander, the hairpin of turn 6. Little bit of an elevation change here as you make your way uphill through turns 10 and 11. It curves up towards probably one of the best corners on this track. It's a series of corners, really. A triple right-hander of 12, 13 and 14. That leads you to a sharp left-hander through turn 15, a little gravel trap strip on the exit of that corner as well, which has caught out a lot of drivers this weekend. And before you know it, you find your way to the final corner of turn 16. That's a right-hander that brings you back out onto the start-finish straight. And for Hülkenberg, well, he's up on Albon, who's in 15th in the middle sector. So too is Magnussen. So the 2 Haas cars finding a bit of time in the middle sector, not as strong in the first sector. The German driver will come across the line first. Let's see what the Haas can do. Only enough for 15th for Nico Hülkenberg, who has been a bit of a hero on Saturdays, really. Can Kevin Magnussen do any more? Yes, he can. The Dane puts the Haas up into 12th spot. That's the sound of the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc with 5 minutes to go. He needs to get a hurry on here round the final corner, and that's a more reasonable lap time from the Ferrari. It's a 1:21.6 for the Monegasque. Puts himself up into 4th place.
What's going on with that Aston Martin?
They found something.
That's 3rd fastest and 4th fastest now, because Sainz just popped up into 2nd. But yeah, that's I almost can't believe what I'm seeing, Sam.
No, we certainly didn't expect that, did we? When the lights went green at the end of the pit lane, to see an Aston Martin that far up. We're now watching a replay of Oscar Piastri. Oh, that's not going to do your floor any good, Oscar.
I have to say, having said that, I mean, I don't know if this is the case, but Qatar a couple of years ago was one of Fernando Alonso's best races, I think. How he ever put that Alpine on the podium against Mercedes and Red Bulls in, I think it was 2021.
Was that the defend like a lion?
Yeah. No, that was
the message
in
to
Hungary.
Ocon.
Yeah, that was the message to Ocon, yeah.
It was absolutely outstanding.
Alonso then, currently in that 4th spot. A reminder though, this is only the first part of qualifying, Q1. This is just to escape through into Q2. The top 15 will go through. Right now, if it ended like this, we'd say goodbye to Hülkenberg, Albon, Joe, Colapinto, and Esteban Ocon, who's languishing down at the back as well. His Alpine teammate is up in 9th, both out there on another lap. Indeed, everybody out there, bar Alonso's Aston Martin and his teammate Stroll. Both of them perhaps feeling fairly confident, but Stroll is down in 10th, about half a second adrift. But for Aston Martin and for Stroll, that's fairly good going for this stage in the weekend. Who else is going quick out there? Bottas has found a little bit of time in the middle sector. Zhou Guanyu's having his best lap of the weekend so far. Franco Colapinto will be eyeing a move through to Q2, although after that big crash in Vegas last weekend, he's had to revert to an older spec car, so does not have the same upgrades that his teammate has. That will put him at a disadvantage, along with the fact that he has never raced around here. Zhou Guanyu crosses the line for Sauber, puts himself up into 11th. What about Valtteri Bottas, who looked good in sprint qualifying? And actually, Bottas left a little bit disappointed at the end of that final run, down in 14th. And it was last year that both Saubers scored points.
Yeah, he's going to have to do a slow down, recharge the batteries and go again. But has he taken too much life out of those soft compound tyres? Valtteri Bottas down in 14th. Obviously, he doesn't have a job next year at the moment. There's rumours spilling around the paddock that he will be back at Mercedes as the reserve driver. It's a shame to see him not racing, to be honest. I think he's plenty good enough to be in Formula One, but he will definitely be wanting more on his next lap.
Well, there's a plum Cadillac drive in a couple of years.
That's true. That is true.
Who knows where Valtteri Bottas might end up, but the rumours are swirling of a return to Mercedes as their reserve driver next year. But he still wants to finish off the season as strongly as he can with Sauber, yet to get off the mark. 0 points to their name. Could they do it at the track where they last scored points a year ago? It was a double points finish for both Saubers in the Grand Prix. Right now they're 11th and 14th, which is actually fairly good going. But the track could be ramping up. Those in the drop zone right now: Tsunoda, Hülkenberg, the two Williams of Albon and Colapinto, Esteban Ocon 20th and last, and not finding the time he needs is Esteban Ocon. Really struggling out there on the circuit is the Frenchman. His teammate is up in 9th, and they're going to leave it right till the closing stages of this Q1 with just over a minute left to run. The final runs then begin for the two Williams of Alex Albon and Colapinto. Hülkenberg's not showing anything special in this first sector. Tsunoda's having a bit of a miserable race, a miserable qualifying. He might get one more lap if he's quick enough in the final sector. He's looking to be out-qualified by his teammate right now, Liam Lawson, who isn't that much further up the road in 15th. But this, the sound of Franco Colapinto, the Argentine racer who made waves replacing Logan Sargent, is still in the frame, perhaps for some kind of Red Bull racing seat next season, but has the shine worn off slightly after a couple of crashes in succession for Colapinto, needing to put together a clean and tidy weekend and as best as he can in a car that is not the same spec as his teammate.
Well, Williams have had a hard year, haven't they? They've gone through an awful lot of crash damage, and that really affects the team's ability to upgrade the car, because all that crash damage costs an awful lot of money. If you spend money on crash damage, you can't spend money on upgrading your vehicle. So, challenging year. I think, you know, Colapinto's been a kind of surprise package. I didn't expect him to have those great early races. Recently, he's found it more of a struggle. He rounds the final corner. Can he get out of Q1? No, he can't. He stays in P19.
What about his teammate, though? Alex Albon gets a little bit more. It's enough for 15th, but still very much at risk. The checkered flag is out then. Can Esteban Ocon get himself off the bottom of the qualifying order? No, he can't. Ocon will be 20th and last in the Alpine. Charles Leclerc goes fastest. Lando Norris's last lap was deleted, but he should be safe in 4th. He's coming to the pits. Verstappen's been in the pits for a fair while at the moment. His teammate Sergio Perez looks like he'll be safe. Gets himself up into 8th. At the dying stages, Bottas launches himself up to 11th. Could we see two Saubers through into Q2 at the expense of two RBs? Lawson and Tsunoda, along with Hülkenberg, currently find themselves at risk of elimination. The RBs embroiled in that battle for 6th place in the Constructors. Lawson's had a decent middle sector. He'll cross the line first. Will he launch himself up? No, he won't. Lawson is knocked out. What about Tsunoda? He just about escapes through up into 15th. That puts Albon down. Is Hülkenberg out on the track? Yes, he is. Hülkenberg's the only man that can ruin Tsunoda's day, but he's not showing any kind of pace. So I think Tsunoda will be safe and through. Gasly gets into 10th, and that will be qualifying done and dusted. And a tale of two halves for, that'll be Q1 done and dusted, and that'll be a tale of two halves for the Alpine team. Gasly ending that session in 10th. Ocon plumb last.
It's not gonna work out, is it?
No.
No, we didn't get something right. We definitely didn't get the sock right, Nico. But obviously we got something wrong. Sorry, man.
Well, that was Nico Hulkenberg's radio, and he will be out in 18th place, just ahead of Colapinto, 19. Albon and Lawson also being eliminated from Q1.
Surprised by Nico Hulkenberg. I mean, he's generally had the edge on Kevin Magnussen for most of the year in qualifying. Kevin Magnussen's come back at him recently, but to have such a big disparity between the cars in terms of paces, yeah, he'll be very disappointed. The other one is Gasly and Ocon. You've got Gasly up in P10, Esteban Ocon down in P20. Yeah, big difference there. Alpine will be happy that they've got a car through in the top 10 so far. Obviously, this being the first part of qualifying, and this is really, really huge. The fact that Alpine and Haas have got a car through each, really, really big news for both of them.
It certainly is. For Nico Hulkenberg, as you say, he's made it through to Q3, I think about 10 times this season. More often than not, he shines on a Saturday. Today, under the lights, not shining whatsoever, down in 18th. Rosanna.
Another driver struggling at this part of qualifying, Lewis Hamilton, okay, making it through into the next part, but P7 for him after a difficult sprint race, and that was even after a tow that George Russell, his teammate, gave him, who finished that first part of qualifying in P1. Just a note on track limits violation. Lando Norris was pinged for that. As you said, Harry, in commentary, he lost his lap at one point in that particular part of qualifying. So just something to keep an eye on, because last year here in Qatar, so many drivers were being pinged for track limits violations. So as the stakes get a little bit higher in SQ2 and Q2, goodness, we're confusing sprint qualifying and qualifying in Q2 and Q3. Perhaps we'll see more people running wide and losing lap times. So yeah, an interesting first part of qualifying. Disappointing day for quite a few people there, I think. But a happy note for Sergio Perez, who made it out of Q1.
Well, I mean,
Happy
small
days.
crumbs, isn't
Happy
it?
days.
Small crumbs for Sergio Perez, indeed. Did make it through. Just to reiterate then, Q1, the first part of qualifying is done.
Alonso purposely slowed up through 9 and 10 when he avoided his lap. It just sucks, man. That was troll.
That was Liam Lawson on the radio, who was unhappy with Alonso, but then actually told it was his teammate Lance Stroll who was perhaps scuppering the Kiwis' final flying lap in what was a bit of a turnaround for both Aston Martins, making it through into Q2. Both Saubers as well making it through into Q2. Tsunoda in the RB escaped by a whisker. And we've lost the Williams of Alex Albon, the RB of Liam Lawson, who you just heard there, the Haas of Nico Hulkenberg, the Williams of Franco Colapinto, and the Alpine of Esteban Ocon. They are eliminated, and that is where, pending any penalties, they will start Sunday's Grand Prix, as we now wait for Q2 to get going. Now, we're just going to get another look here. The sound you're hearing is a replay of Liam Lawson making his way around on his final flyer. We see the Aston Martin, but, I mean, Sam, I'm not a racing driver, but I'm pretty sure Stroll was well out of the way.
No, he definitely got out of the way, but these cars are so aero-dependent that if you get that close to another car, it does affect your car. So that might have cost him a 10th, and a 10th, where would a 10th have put him? A 10th would have put him through. So it is that close. That he would have had a little bit of understeer, a little bit of a front wash through that slower speed corner due to a bit of turbulent air, and yeah, it would have cost him. But I don't think Stroll really is to blame. He was well out of the way. It's just one of those things. On a circuit like this, you get traffic.
Yeah. Well, we've lost our first 5 drivers, then we'll look to lose another 5 in this next session, which will be getting underway in a few moments' time. Big disparity between the two Alpines, and Esteban Ocon is a man who hasn't really been too happy with the direction of his car over the last few races. Is there something going on there, or is Ocon, I mean, since Sao Paulo, he was a rocket ship there.
Yeah, but that was a wet race and slightly different. But in dry conditions, I think Gasly, for most of the recent history, has been quicker. You know, Gasly is the future of that team, not Esteban Ocon. Ocon obviously leaving and joining Haas next year. So if they're going to go in a direction, it's going to be on what Gasly wants and requires, what he needs with his race car.
That was the voice of the McLaren Formula E driver, Sam Bird, alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, is the BBC's F1 correspondent. And down on the ground is Rosanna Tennant.
And the cars are waiting at the end of the pit lane. People pretty keen to get out there. We've still got a red light at the moment, but I think I can see it's George Russell at the front of the queue. Am I right,
yep,
Harry?
Yep.
My eyes don't deceive me. There we go, green light, and he is the first car out onto track ahead of the McLarens and the Ferrari.
Russell leads, Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari out, and it's the McLaren just waiting its time of Oscar Piastri to try and build up a bit of a gap to the Ferrari in front of him in the pit lane. That's become pretty much normal practice over the course of this season as we head back under the lights here at the Losail International Circuit. The floodlights in full beam illuminating this 5.4-kilometre track. That's just over 3.3 miles, 16 turns, 6 to the left, 10 to the right, reaching speeds of almost 320 kilometres per hour. It's a high downforce track. It is fast as well. Long duration corners, but a smooth surface as well, favouring some more than others. We're expecting a McLaren versus possibly a Mercedes for a front row, but Red Bull, have they found a little bit of a way forward since the sprint race? What about Ferrari too? Can they try and challenge? They are 30 points back from McLaren in the Constructors' Championship. They will be hoping to keep that fight going until the final round next week in Abu Dhabi. And can anyone cause any other spanners? We've got the two Aston Martin, well, the one Aston Martin, no, the two Aston Martins looking a little bit quicker than they have done in recent times. So it's setting us up for a tasty climax in this qualifying.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Harry. I was really surprised by the Aston Martin's pace. I mean, when Fernando Alonso did that time quite early on in the session, we all looked at the timing screen and thought there was something wrong with it. Certainly, they've done some homework and found something with their car that seems to be working. This man on our screens, though, now, George Russell, he has been electric. Obviously, he's on a high from his brilliant win in Vegas, and the car really seems to be suiting him at the moment.
George Russell out there at the moment, making his way towards the hairpin of turn 6. Strong sprint race earlier on this weekend, fastest of anybody in that first sector, but it would be the first car setting a proper lap time as they are all now out onto the circuit. We're just waiting for the two Aston Martins and Yuki Tsunoda to emerge.
You said Abu Dhabi.
I did, and that didn't sound right when I said it. I know, it's Abu Dhabi.
It's Abu Dhabi.
I said Derby and I immediately felt terrible.
It's in the Midlands, is it?
Abu Dhabi. In Yas Marina. Looking forward to that next week. But right now we're in Qatar with 12 minutes and 20 seconds to go of Q2.
We're actually in Qatar, not Qatar, but anyway.
I think there's contention over that one. I think you can have both on that front.
Get something right.
Oh, it's been a long day, Sam. It's been a long day. Anyway, we're in qualifying for Q2 at the Losail International Circuit, and Russell has set the fastest lap time in these first flies. 1:21.1. Sainz slots in behind, 4/10 back into second. Oscar Piastri puts that McLaren back into second place, a 1:21.3. But Russell with the early advantage.
That's a really, really quick time already from George Russell. The track will ramp up, but that is quick, and we're seeing Max Verstappen, purple sector 1. He's found something for sure. Red Bull have worked on that car and they found a little bit of pace.
Lewis Hamilton takes the line in 5th with these first flies. This is Max Verstappen. That's the sound you're hearing. The now 4-time world champion clinched his 3rd at this track last year. Managed to do it in Vegas this time around. One final corner to go for Verstappen. Was fastest of anyone in the first sector. That's now gone to Lando Norris. The Dutchman crosses the line, goes P1 by just over half a tenth of a second, a 1:21.0. That's a good lap as well from Verstappen. It feels like Red Bull might have found something in this gap between the sprint race and qualifying. Perez pops up to 4th. He is having a better run than he has done in any recent qualifyings. He's missed Q3 9 times this season. He's had 6 Q1 eliminations. That's the career total for Max Verstappen. Thankfully, he won't be adding one more to that this time around. He's made it through. He's down to 5th now, though, because Norris puts his McLaren up into 4th. It's Verstappen, Russell, Piastri, Norris and Perez, the top 5. Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton, Joe and Bottas, the top 10. Magnussen's 11th, and we still wait a lap time from Alonso, who's just begun her flying lap, Gasly, Tsunoda and Stroll.
I did not expect this pecking order, Harry, when qualifying started. I certainly didn't see Perez jumping up there, only being 3/10 off his teammate, and I did not expect Max Verstappen to be quickest overall. We expected George Russell to be quick, yes, but we also didn't expect to see the McLarens 2.5 to 3/10 off the back of George Russell, so this is getting quite interesting.
It really is. A reminder, we'll eliminate the slowest 5 drivers in this session, so everybody from 11th place down to 15th as we set the grid for Sunday's Grand Prix, which you'll be able to hear live on 5 Sports Extra, build up from 3:45 in the afternoon ahead of Lights Out from 4 o'clock. Join us for that. But right now we are enjoying qualifying in this second session, and Alonso and Aston Martin, have they come alive under the lights? Are these temperatures slightly lower than we're used to seeing, playing favourably for them? Have they found a way forward in their setup? They've really been going backwards this season. It's not been going well for them.
No, Fernando Alonso made a mistake in sector 2, and he's actually bailed out of this lap now. So Lance Stroll, I think, is going to continue his lap. That'll give us a better indication of where the Aston Martin is, and then you can take 3/10 off and put where Fernando would be. So this will be interesting to see what Lance Stroll can do. He crosses the line, only 13th.
That's what Stroll has on offer for his first flyer. Pierre Gasly in the pink Alpine is making his way round the final corner now. Let's see what he can do. He's currently languishing down in 14th. Good lap from Gasly, who puts himself up into Q3. Actually has a good history of qualifying around this circuit. Qualified 4th on the grid back in 2021 in his Alpha Tauri days, and was promoted to 3rd after a grid penalty managed to bump him up a place. So Gasly flying in that Alpine, and actually you have to say Gasly has been flying in that Alpine over the course of the last few Grand Prix. 3rd in Vegas and 7th in Sao Paulo as well. That was the sound of Sergio Perez, who was going rather slowly, but still found himself off the track and in the gravel.
So weird. He's done a couple of strange things today. I mean, that's on a cool-down lap, and he's gone off through the gravel for no apparent reason. There's the mistake from Fernando Alonso. Just a little bit of a front wash going into a snap of oversteer and running deep and wide on the exit of turn number 10.
Bottas, Joe, Tsunoda, Stroll and Alonso are the drivers that find themselves in that elimination zone with 7.5 minutes remaining of Q2. Everybody out there on the soft tyre. Verstappen has the fastest lap time, a 1:21.0. Russell, Piastri, Norris and Perez, the top 5. Piastri is out there, though, again, going for another lap. And if we look at that battle in the midfield as well, it's currently being won by Pierre Gasly, who's all the way up in 6th. His closest challenger is Kevin Magnussen's Haas down in 10th. And the 2 Saubers currently having one of their best weekends of the season in this qualifying session alone. 11th and 12th for them. Early stages, they might get bumped down by the end of it, but both cars looking stronger than they have done in a long time. Piastri strong in that middle sector, strong in the final sector, finds time, but it's not as quick as Verstappen, but there's fine margins, less than half a tenth separating Verstappen and Piastri, who pops himself in that papaya McLaren up into 2nd place. Ooh, almost a little bit of a collision in the pit lane with Lewis Hamilton being released, and then he finds Carlos Sainz in a Ferrari being released, and that has been noted for an unsafe release on behalf of the Ferrari team. Might well be a slam dunk penalty there coming for the Scuderia.
That'll be a reprimand, won't it? I don't think that'll be any kind of grid position. They'll get fined.
Well, it's been noted. We'll see whether that gets up graded to under investigation. Sainz is now out there on the circuit, looking to improve his chances. The two Ferraris have dropped down to 7th and 8th, but the final flyers now in the final 5.5 minutes of Q2. It's Magnussen who's on the bubble in 10th. Bottas and Zhou just behind with the two Saubers. The RB of Tsunoda. Lance Stroll is 14th. Be curious to see what Fernando Alonso can do. Looked really strong in Q1. He's still in the pits though. On his first fly, made a mistake, bailed out of it. So we haven't quite seen what the wily old fox has got. And a sense of Aston Martin perhaps being a little bit stronger than we are used to seeing in this qualifying session under the lights in Qatar. Russell further extends his advantage out in front now, only, well, 1,000th of a second separating Russell and Verstappen in that P1 position.
Extends it to 1,000th of a second.
Fine margins of Formula 1, Sam Bird. Every 1,000th counts, and for Lewis Hamilton it's not enough. Only 9th fastest.
Yeah, that's not enough from Lewis. He's going to have to go again. I don't think, has he got enough time to put on another new set of soft tyres and go again, or is that too risky? If he does that, he's really sacrificing himself in Q3. He's had a really challenging day today. But going to the top of the pile, you've got 1,000th of a second between Russell and Verstappen. You've got 200ths of a second between Russell and Leclerc, and 300ths between Russell and Piastri. It's so close around here. In fact, yesterday we saw in the sprint qualifying twice, first and second was separated by nothing. The times were that close.
Well, Verstappen has just gone to the top of the times, and well, from 1,000th of a second, it's gone to 3,500ths of a second between Verstappen and Russell. This is only Q2. The fight for pole isn't quite on yet. It's just the fight to get through into the top 10. Right now, the one at risk, holding on to that coveted 10th spot, is the Haas driver, Kevin Magnussen, the sole remaining Haas. Magnussen managing to out-qualify his teammate Nico Hülkenberg, who was knocked out in Q1. He's on an outlap at the moment. We're looking for the two Saubers, who are also on an outlap. The RB of Tsunoda still in the pits, along with the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll, and Alonso still in the pits as well. With 3.5 minutes remaining, they'll need to get a bit of a hurry on to get out in time. They should be able to do it, but Norris now goes to the top, a 1:29.83.
Yeah, and he had a lovely bit of clear track in front of him as well, so I think McLaren have judged that quite nicely. He can now come in the pits and get ready for Q3.
Kevin Magnussen gears up for his final flyer, the Danish driver who looks like he'll be bidding farewell to Formula 1 in a week's time as he departs the Haas team, as he makes his way down to turn 1. Now, Sam, you said, could Lewis Hamilton come into the pits and try and stick on any kind of new set of rubber? He has come into the pits with less than 3 minutes remaining. It'll have to be a quick pit stop if they are going to send him out again, or if he doesn't feel like he's got anything left to give.
Well, look, he's got basically a half a second buffer to Valtteri Bottas in P11. It would be a nervous, anxious wait for him to see if he makes it through. Maybe he's done enough, maybe, but it's going to be extremely tight.
It's going to be final flyers right at the flag, because Magnussen has bailed out of his lap.
Sorry, Lewis Hamilton is now back out on the track, and he's on an outlap. So yeah, I think that he's gone for another set, and he's going to have to try and go faster.
Yeah, everybody out on track, bar Oscar Piastri at the moment, who is in the pits. Alonso has finally re-emerged from his pits as well, weaving left and right, trying to get heat into his tyres. He'll get one final flyer. He's currently down in 15th with no time on the board.
That mistake we saw from Alonso earlier, running wide at turn 10, he's done that 3 or 4 times this weekend. I think I've seen him do it in almost every session, every qualifying or practice session, that is. And the problem that Aston Martin have been having all year is with the front end stability. Alonso feels the car through the front, and so not being able to predict what the front end of the car is going to do is a big hindrance for him.
Let's see if Alonso will be able to keep it neat and tidy on his final flyer. He's on an outlap at the moment, just coming through into the final sector. Magnussen has started his final flyer, and actually he's got brilliant track position. Nobody in front of him for pretty much half a lap as he makes his way through the U-bends of turn 1 and 2. Zhou Guanyu is just behind him. Stroll has started his final flyer. It will be, as the checkered flag flies, in a minute's time, the final flyers from everybody out on the circuit. Tell you what, Zhou Guanyu's had a decent first sector as well. But up in the top 10, Gasly's running well too. Russell also on a final flyer in a purple mini sector in sector 1. It's going to be tight right at the very close of this session with 42 seconds left to run.
So I think Kevin Magnussen's not going to be improving on this lap. The car doesn't quite look there. Also, his upshift sounds very lazy. When he upshifts, there's then an oscillation coming from the engine. Just sounds a bit lazy to me. But then he pops in a purple. He pops in a purple middle sector. Shows what I know.
Well, he didn't have the best end of the first sector, did Kevin Magnussen, but he's lit up in the middle sector. Let's see what he can do. He's fallen down to 11th now. Tsunoda has worked his way up into 10th with 11 seconds left on the board. Norris is currently sitting pretty at the top. He's in the pits. This is the fight to get in to Q3. Magnussen with a lap and a half puts himself up to 6th. How much evolution will there be in the dying stages of this Q2? Zhou Guanyu can't make it through, has to settle for 11th. He's just ahead of Tsunoda though, so by Sauber's chances, that's a really good run for Fernando Alonso. We'll see what the Spaniard has got shortly. He's coming through the final sector now. His teammate has taken the checkered flag in 14th. Bottas will be out qualified for the second race in a row by his teammate, both departing that team at the end of the year. But the two Saubers currently 11th and 12th. Then comes Tsunoda. Stroll's taken the flag in 14th. Sainz improves up to 6th. But can Fernando Alonso find anything here? He's looking quick. He will get through into Q2. Alonso up into 7th. And that puts Lewis Hamilton down into the drop zone. Hamilton will need to go again here. He's fastest of anybody in the final sector. And he's managed to get through up into the top 5. And right at the end, fastest of anybody in the first and middle sectors. Verstappen re-energized, lays down a marker and goes to the top by almost 0.3 of a second. It's not pole yet, but he's through into Q3 by a fair margin, and out goes Pierre Gasly's Alpine by 12 thousandths of a second. Then Zhou Guanyu in 12th, Valtteri Bottas 13th, Yuki Tsunoda 14th, and Lance Stroll 15th.
Sergio Perez making it through.
Did a bad job.
Yeah, Gasly not happy with himself there, saying he's done a bad job. But Sergio Perez made it through to Q3 for what seems like the first time in a long time. So that'll give him a little bit of confidence at least. And Kevin Magnussen, what a brilliant middle sector and end to a lap. When we thought that the lap was done after sector 1, he's pulled it out of the bag.
He certainly has. Gasly had Magnussen had a great middle sector and a final sector, and crucial for Haas to be ahead of the Alpine of Gasly and the RB of Tsunoda.
And in the end, Sam, you were a bit cruel to Fernando Alonso. Here's Magnussen's radio.
OK, you are through into Q3.
How about that? Nice one.
Alonso wasn't 0.3 quicker than Lance Stroll, he was 0.7 quicker than him.
I was being kind to Lance Stroll, I think. Just put it that way.
Well, Stroll continues, having never reached Q3 this season when Alonso has not. That streak going through. Zhou out-qualifies Bottas for the second consecutive race. P12 is actually his best qualifying position of the season.
Yeah, we're through. Good job.
Yes.
And that was Alonso's radio right at the end, managing to get that Aston Martin up into 8th spot as he peels back into the pits in his green Aston Martin, hits his markers outside his pit box, gets lifted up onto the jacks and wheeled back into his garage for a little rest before he comes out again, Rosanna, for Q3 in a few minutes' time.
Yeah, not long until that final part of qualifying, but you mentioned Zhou out qualifying his teammate Valtteri Bottas. That's the 3rd time this year, and I was just speaking to Alex Albon, who we lost in Q1, and he says the Saubers have obviously found something, and that's the reason why he thinks he didn't make it through into the second part of qualifying, because the Saubers were occupying more spaces further up the grid than they normally do.
And those were the ramblings of Pierre Gasly, who I think is a touch annoyed by being knocked out in Q2. 11th place for Pierre Gasly, who will have to start outside of the top 10 then after a brilliant 3rd place on the grid for the Vegas Grand Prix last week. And having had, well, 2 top 10 starts in the USA and Mexico in recent times, that Alpine has come alive in the latter end of this season, certainly in the hands of the Frenchman Frenchman Pierre Gasly. That shock double podium in Sao Paulo as well, very much helped by the conditions, but it rocketed Alpine up into 6th. They've fallen down a spot now in the constructors, but that's how much it means. That frustration for Gasly on the radio just showcases how much those middle of the road points, those lower top 10 starting positions mean to teams like this.
Well, it's the most improved team of the grid this year, isn't it, with regards to where they started the year and where they find themselves right now. And this is really important for all those teams. This P6 position in the constructors is huge. It's money in the bank ready for next year and next year's development. And I've got to say that the leadership of, let's face it, Flavio Briatore and Oliver Oakes has been a masterstroke really for the Enstone-based team. They've really come on. That car was overweight, it was slow, it wasn't handling well, but they've turned it around and it's become a podium finishing race car.
Slowest car of the year at the start, plumb last. Although Esteban Ocon is also plumb last in this race, but I wonder if there's maybe a little more that meets the eye there for that Alpine. Ocon well off the pace and just wasn't able to improve. About almost over a tenth behind Colapinto in an old spec Williams. Just a reminder, out of that session then, Gasly, Joe, Bottas, Tsunoda and Stroll, the 5 drivers to be eliminated. Rosanna.
Yeah, just a word on Esteban Ocon in the Alpine, finishing very prematurely this qualifying session. P20 for him. I asked him, anything happened during that session to find himself in that position? He said, no, nothing happened. Since the US Grand Prix, it's just really not been going his way. And he said there was just no more on the table today. But that must be super frustrating when his teammate's up in P11, even though Pierre Gasly is obviously super frustrated with that result.
Yeah, it's a tale of two halves for the 2 Alpine drivers. Gasly at least will be able to do something from just on the periphery of the top 10. We saw in the sprint some drivers get an absolute rocket ship of a start. Kevin Magnussen started down in 15th for the sprint and found himself right on the periphery of the top 10 in the at the end of the opening lap. So there is still hope, and of course the Grand Prix a lot longer than the sprint, 57 laps compared to 19.
I think also Kevin Magnussen's one of those drivers that will just go for anything. Whenever there's an opportunity, he will be throwing some shapes. You normally find in the sprint races people are maybe slightly more reserved because they've got to keep their car in decent shape ready for qualifying when there's big points on offer tomorrow. But K-Mag, he's going to go for it, you know that.
Every time K-Mag will get his elbows out. What his future next year looks like still remains to be seen. Going through then into Q3, we'll have the 2 Red Bulls of Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. We haven't had that in a little while. The 2 Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. The 2 McLarens of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. The 2 Mercedes of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. The sole remaining Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. And that sole remaining Haas of Kevin Magnussen.
If you were Cadillac and you're joining F1 2026, would you employ Valtteri Bottas and Kevin Magnussen in a team together rather than going for not necessarily unproven talent, but talent from United States, from IndyCar, from Formula 2? What would you do if you were the team boss, Harry?
Oh, it's a tough one. I mean, I would go for... I would seriously consider Kevin Magnussen. I think the outside shot is Kevin Magnussen, partly because remember when he left Haas last time around?
Came back and did that amazing race in Bahrain.
Exactly, but what did he do in the interim? Well, he actually raced for Cadillac in sports cars. So there is a bit of an existing relationship there. So I just wonder whether that might start to rear its head again. Kevin Magnussen is a solid driver. Valtteri Bottas is a solid driver. Equally, I think either would shine in a Red Bull number 2 seat as well, with nothing to lose at the age they're in.
Every man and his dog has been linked to that seat so far.
Well, exactly. You compare it a bit like when Haas first started, right? Their first season, they had Romain Grosjean and Esteban Gutierrez, and really Grosjean was the more experienced and got the better out of that team. Gutierrez had a little bit of race experience but couldn't really do anything. Then they brought in Kevin Magnussen as well, and I think having those 2 experienced hands really did benefit that team, and we saw that when they brought in Mazepin and Schumacher, and what a write-off of a season that was, as much as we love to see rookie talent, and we're getting a lot of it next year. I think maybe for a team like Cadillac, it would be worth considering two experienced drivers.
I think having two experienced drivers with a new team, I think, is quite a wise thing to do. You want two drivers that can extract the maximum out of the package and push the team forwards quickly. When you've got a new driver who's learning on the job and the team is learning, I think that could slow the progress down. So I think Cadillac would do well to sign the likes of Valtteri Bottas and Kevin Magnussen.
Two experienced drivers, then find the next young American thing, have them as your reserve, train them up, give them some Friday practice sessions, and then over the course of a few seasons, slot them in.
We've done their team selection. It's done.
I think we should be running this team, Sam. I think we've got a future in team management right there.
Well, us three in here, you know.
Yeah, and really it's Benson pulling the strings.
Benny can do the strategy.
10 minutes and 11 seconds remain of Q3, which is now underway. Everybody out there on their out laps. Haven't seen any proper lap times yet. George Russell has just embarked on his first flyer. Pick for pole.
Sorry, Harry. George Russell is actually going for a second preparation.
Ah, you're right, yes.
So this is something that we've seen Mercedes do before. They've done it this weekend, and they've done it previously, I think, in Vegas, where they feel like their tyre isn't ready yet. The heat of the surface of the tyre hasn't gone through to the core. So in order for the tyre to work perfectly, you need that heat all the way through the compound of the entire tyre. So that's why they take that extra conditioning lap, effectively. But I would say, well, based on Q2, you'd say your favourite is Max Verstappen, but honestly, I don't know who's going to be pole, because Max Verstappen's popped up this evening and decided to go really, really fast. But anyone between Piastri, Norris, Russell and Verstappen.
There's lots of weird things happening today. I mean, in that second session, Fernando Alonso in Aston Martin, which has been struggling all year, basically was less than a tenth slower than Carlos Sainz's Ferrari. And Verstappen was nowhere in the sprint, and suddenly he's fastest. That's just don't quite know what I'm watching at the moment, Harry.
I'm glad you're saying that, because if you don't, then we're lost as well. But Magnussen is the first lap time to go on the board, 1:21.5. Let's see what Carlos Sainz can do. He's not as quick as his teammate, though. Sainz will cross the line first and immediately displaces Magnussen and quickly pulls out of the way for George Russell, who has now done, as you say, Sam, those two warm-up laps and starts to embark on that flyer. The McLaren of Oscar Piastri trying to get a little bit of a tow as well from the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, which just pulled out of the way once he set his lap time to go fastest. As Leclerc signs Magnussen third, Perez in fourth, then Russell, who has got a lap time on the board but not competitive yet, fifth, Piastri sixth, Hamilton seventh. We wait for Norris, Alonso and Verstappen to set their first proper lap times. Russell, now that he's done those two prep laps, fastest of anybody in the first sector, and looking quick in the middle sector as well, as Fernando Alonso jumps up to third, 4/10 of the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc.
You know, when Fernando Alonso gets a sniff of a little bit of performance from his car, he then turns up the wick as well, and it's great to watch. So we see Lando Norris peeling into the pits at the end of his first push lap. George Russell, though, looking mighty strong at the moment. Purple in Sector 1, purple in Sector 2. He rounds the final corner. What's his time going to be? I think he's going to be mid 1:20s. He crosses the line. Yes, 1:20.5.
Bang on. Well predicted, Sam Bird. Fernando Alonso was third, had his lap time deleted for track limits at turn 10.
Turn 10 again. It's that same corner.
He's not happy bunny at that turn 10, is he? The left-hander that then curves up through 11, and as you then approach that triple right-hander of 12, 13 and 14. Better lap this time around for Lewis Hamilton. He's still 4/10 away, though, from his teammate George Russell. At this stage, it's enough for third fastest. It's Russell, Leclerc, Hamilton, Sainz, Piastri, the top five. And that was the sound of Lando Norris having a little bit of a moment there, wasn't it, Sam?
Yeah, he's peeled in the pits because he knows that lap time is no good to him. It doesn't mean anything if he were to finish the lap. He's going to have to go again. On to Lewis Hamilton. I don't think he's any quicker or any closer Harry. I just think that the likes of Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris and Max Verstappen haven't done... Well, Max Verstappen is just starting a lap, but Norris and Piastri haven't done a representative lap time yet.
No, spot on. Norris bailing out of that flying lap because of his mistake. Alonso having his lap time deleted. Norris is back out there now on an out lap. Alonso's in the pits. Verstappen is just coming towards the end of the middle sector right now. He is up on George Russell by 0.5 of a second. Just when you think in a weekend where Max Verstappen might not be competitive, might be a little bit down and out, he always comes back. You can never rule out the Dutchman. Can he put his name in the fight for pole position under the lights here in Qatar? He's certainly trying to do so with just over 5 minutes remaining. Provisional pole currently goes to George Russell. Then it's Leclerc, Hamilton, Sainz, Piastri, the top 5, Magnussen, Perez, Verstappen, Norris and Alonso are the top 10 as it currently stands. Here's Alonso.
You probably know that was deleted.
Very close. I didn't get in for sure. Worth checking because it can be millimeters, if anything.
That was Fernando Alonso who wants that track limits violation checked, but usually those things are pretty slam dunk. He's still in the pits. Verstappen crosses the line, actually lost time in the final couple of sectors compared to George Russell. Has to slot in behind the Mercedes, who still sits pretty at the top. Verstappen's second though, as out on track is the Haas of Kevin Magnussen on an out lap, and Norris has re-emerged in his McLaren, made a mistake on his first flyer, and with 4.5 minutes on the clock embarks down towards turn 1, just over 1 kilometre before you touch on the brakes and sling it into the right-hander of turn 1. That brings you then towards the left-hander of turn 2 as you swing back across the track and up towards turn 3, a right-hand flat-out kink that leads you down a short straight towards then 2 double right-handers. Turn 4 first, followed by 5, 5th gear corner, 205 kilometres an hour through the corner. You then head down towards the hairpin of turn 6, and he's a 10th off Russell.
Yeah, the rear of Norris's car just looks a little bit unhappy at maximum load when he's loading the car, and he's pulled out of the lap. He's pulled out of this one as well, so he's going to have to go again on the next lap. I think he was catching the back of Verstappen, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was catching a little bit of traffic in the middle sector. You've got all that track in front. If he'd come out the pits 15-20 seconds earlier, maybe he wouldn't have had that traffic, but yeah, he's going to have to go again.
Caught Verstappen, and Verstappen is just behind Magnussen as well, who has actually got the best view in the house. Haas and Magnussen in Q2 started their final flyer with absolutely nobody in front of them, and right now they found themselves sitting pretty with, well, what were the 2 championship protagonists right behind him, and he's got clear track pretty much for half a lap.
Well, is that Norris now out of the fight for pole position? That tyre will have been through an angry first sector. He's now going to have to do a cool down. This will be his cool down now, and then he'll have to go again. But has that tyre now seen the best life?
He has backed off massively, as they all have in terms of Verstappen too. Piastri just coming up behind. This is going to be a really intriguing end to this Q3. Right now, provisional pole goes to George Russell. The temperature has slightly dropped throughout the course of this qualifying session. It's Russell, Verstappen, Leclerc, the top 3. Then it's Hamilton, Sainz, the top 5. Piastri is ahead of Magnussen. Then comes Perez. Norris languishing down in 9th. Fernando Alonso emerges from the pits on an outlap just in front of George Russell. He's making his way through turn 1 now. Russell on a hot lap.
No, I think he's
on another build lap.
He's doing the preparation thing again.
So yeah, that will be okay for Russell. He was carrying speed and has been balked by Alonso, but then just backs off in that short straight down to turn 4. Alonso then released to finish his outlap. Alonso will get 1 flyer right at the very end, so we'll need to keep it neat and tidy. His last lap was deleted for track limits, and Alonso has been looking a little handier around this circuit than in recent times. But for now, it is Russell by 0.5 of a second who has that provisional pole. Couldn't the 2 Ferraris find something in these dying stages? What about Max Verstappen? Can he put himself on that pole in a minute and a half's time, we will know.
So Lewis Hamilton will be the final car to cross the line and do a lap. Carlos Sainz about to be the first person to attempt their final lap of qualifying. What's the Ferrari driver got to say about his quest to be on pole position this evening?
Out-qualified and out-raced his teammate Charles Leclerc in the sprint. Hoping to follow that up in Grand Prix conditions as Carlos Sainz starts his penultimate qualifying session with the Scarlet Red Ferrari at his heels. Through the right-hander of turn 4, straight into the right-hander of turn 5. 6th gear corner before you peel onto the brakes, and then left hand down through the hairpin of turn 6. Slight elevation change uphill towards another U-shaped bend, the right-hander of turn 7, and then bleeds you through the sweeping S's of 8 and 9.
Looking at the G-forces that Carlos Sainz is going through and subjected to in the car, 5.5 G on quite a few of these corners. I mean, these Formula One drivers have got necks as strong as bulls. It's unbelievable how much G they're subjected through around this Qatar circuit. I think Lando Norris even said that he's going to have to do a little bit more training because these cars are so physical. He comes into the final corner, 4G into there. Carlos Sainz rounds the final corner. I don't think this is going to be enough for the front row, and he stays in 5th place.
No, it was a so-so opening sector for Sainz. What about Charles Leclerc, though? He's had a slightly better run. Checkered flag is out. Magnussen doesn't improve, stays 7th. Sainz stays 5th. What about Charles Leclerc? No one improving massively in these final stages. Improves his lap time, does Leclerc. Stays in 3rd. Provisional pole still belonging to George Russell. Piastri pops up into 3rd. Lando Norris with one final flyer. What can the British racer do? It's not enough for pole. It's enough for 3rd. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen is fastest of anybody in the 1st sector. Has had a little bit of a rough middle sector, though. Russell has cemented pole position provisionally, but can Verstappen take it away from Russell right at the close? Yes, he can. The Dutchman is on pole for the Qatar Grand Prix. His teammate in the other Red Bull, Perez, can only muster 9th, and Lewis Hamilton once again out-qualified by his teammate by almost half a second. Languishes down in 6th, splits the two Ferraris, but for Max Verstappen, after what was an anonymous sprint race earlier on today, has bounced back in style. Pole position for Max Verstappen in Qatar. He'll line up alongside George Russell in the Mercedes, and the two McLarens falling back behind the Red Bull and the Merc. Norris 3rd, Piastri 4th, Charles Leclerc in 5th for Ferrari, ahead of Hamilton. Sainz 7th, Fernando Alonso stole 8th at the flag, ahead of Perez. Kevin Magnussen rounds out the top 10.
Super dangerous by Verstappen.
And that was George Russell, who was caught right up behind Max Verstappen through one of the fast right-handers. Had to really get out of it. It would have really unsettled Russell, who was carrying a lot of speed.
Well, that could be very interesting, Harry. I mean, if he's deemed to have blocked him on a fast lap,
depends what lap that was
could be
on.
a penalty.
We'll have to.
That's an excellent turnaround. That's pole position.
Let's go, guys. Well done. What a turnaround. Yes.
Yabba dabba do, Max. That is the first official pole since Austria. Well done. That was a mighty qualifying. Well done, mate.
Yeah, well done. Well done. That was really amazing, the turnaround. Great job, guys.
Pole for the first time in 12 races for the man who clinched his 4th world title this time last week. Lines up in that P1 spot once again. Pole for the Qatar Grand Prix. Tomorrow he'll have the best view in the house, starting 57 laps as he pulls into Parc Fermé, undoes his belts, removes his hand device, and the steering wheel sits aloft on top of the cockpit, clambers out of that Red Bull car, and there'll be a wry smile underneath that Red Bull helmet, with Russell lining up alongside, and Lando Norris 3rd for McLaren. Rosanna.
Wow, we were watching that in the media pen. All of the journalists, all of the photographers were fixated and transfixed by what we were watching at the final part of qualifying then. And Pierre Gasly was still in the media pen, and he stood still and watched the end of qualifying. And as Max Verstappen took pole position, he put his hand to his mouth. I don't think anyone was expecting that this evening, especially from what we've seen so far this weekend. What a stellar performance from Max Verstappen. But guys, everybody's been talking about the fight between McLaren and Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. Of course, that is still to be settled. McLaren, I think, will probably, although not being on the front row, they'll be happy, surely. They've out-qualified both the Ferraris, so it's still looking like it's advantage McLaren at this stage.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there, Rosanna. I think McLaren, okay, they're not on the front row, but they've done their main objective this evening, which is be in front of the red cars.
Yeah, absolutely. They're doing their goal of extending, or hoping to extend their points advantage over Ferrari, which currently lies at 30 points they have. If they leave Qatar with a 44-point advantage, the title is theirs. Ideally, they seal it as 1-2 in the Grand Prix with the fastest lap as well. That would give them the points they need, but they will start behind George Russell and Max Verstappen, who clinches pole for the Grand Prix after only qualifying 6th in the sprint. Red Bull and Verstappen turning it around once again, but we can hear from our top three talking to a veteran of 35 Grand Prix starts. It's Jolyon Palmer.
Lando Norris, third position in qualifying, not quite what you were aiming for, I'm sure. Looked tricky out there for you, this one.
Yes, yeah, not the position we were hoping for after yesterday and today, but the maximum we could do for sure. My lap was pretty good. I was pretty happy with the lap. Just not quick enough comparing to the others. So happy with the lap. Happy I got everything out of it. Not happy with the result.
And still thinking big picture for the Constructors' Championship on the line. You got yourself ahead of the Ferraris at the end. It's got to be a big target for beating them tomorrow.
Yes, I mean they were. I mean I saw how close. Everyone saw how close it was between all of us for the whole of qualifying. So not a lot in it between all of us, which gives us hope that we can still go forward. But there are some very quick cars behind at the same time. So yeah, I think we look forward to it. I think we showed good race pace today. I did have the benefit of being out front and being in clean air, which is a beautiful thing. But I expect a tougher race tomorrow. Yeah.
You gave up a race win earlier. You're going to go fighting for another one tomorrow then?
Of course. Yes, that was something completely separate. So excited. I mean, I think we still have a good chance. I don't think we're as quick as the Mercedes. And I mean, Red Bull showed how much they improved from yesterday, you know. So yes, plenty of opportunity for everyone.
All right. Good luck tomorrow, Lando.
Yes, man. Thank you.
Lando Norris, who lines up in P3, out-qualifying his teammate for the 19th time this year.
George Russell, another front row start. I sense you're frustrated there to miss the pole, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great run so far. The last 4 qualifyings, we've been on the front row every one, which I don't think we could have dreamt of a few races. So feeling in such a groove at the moment, feeling really great. My first lap was one of the best I've ever done. And then, for whatever reason, just couldn't find that extra bit of time on the last lap, and Max pipped me. But just taking the positives, the car's been so great the last 2 weekends, and just enjoying it while we can.
We saw an incident where you were blocked by Max. Was there anything in that at the end there?
You tell me, you're the expert. I mean, I ended up going through the gravel all over the floor. Oh yeah, here. Through the floor, so it felt like the floor was scraping over that curb and through the gravel, so I hope it didn't damage it. Maybe that's the reason why we didn't improve, I don't know, but it was a bit of a hairy 1-2 corners before we start the lap.
But on the positives, you led in Brazil, you won in Vegas. It looks like Mercedes are here to stay now at the front.
Yeah, I mean, these have been 3 really great races for us. I think Brazil, a little bit circumstantial with the wet qualifying on the Sunday morning, but the pace last week in Vegas was true. The pace here this weekend is real as well, but it's so close out there. But it just is nice to be in the mix at the front once again.
Race pace looked good earlier. Big fight with Oscar. Can you take it to Max tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, just excited. Hopefully we can have a proper race rather than this team order stuff. So, no, it's going to be a good race. I think we'll all be going for it. It's actually great that Max is in the mix as well. I was really surprised at their turnaround because they looked really off the pace yesterday, off the pace this morning, and obviously they were both in Q3 and Max on pole, so I think we've got a good race on our hands.
Indeed, let's hope so. Well done,
Thank
George.
you. Cheers.
In a rich vein of form right now for George Russell, who will line up P2, his third consecutive front row start. That is the best run of his career. But for Max Verstappen, it will be pole position.
Max Verstappen already deep into the debrief there with Lando, but what a turnaround.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, honestly, I also didn't expect that, but yeah, well done to the team, you know, to give me a car that feels a bit more connected, and once the car is a bit more together, you can push also harder, and it felt a lot better out there in qualifying for me.
So what was the secret? Obviously, parc fermé rules were lifted. You had a chance to change the car. Did you turn it upside down?
I mean, we did change a bit on the car, but I never thought it would make such a swing in performance. So that's promising. I hope, of course, it also lasts more in the race. I don't know that yet, but it just felt already a lot more stable over one lap, and that's exactly what we need. And yeah, very happy to be on pole. It's been a while.
Yeah, first pole since the Austrian Grand Prix, incredibly. I'm sure you remember how to start from pole, but it's 57 laps tomorrow. It's a brutal track here, so many fast corners. Are you expecting a physical, tough race?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough race, I think, physically, but I think also mainly on the tires, just making sure that you're good on them. You know, the front left around here is quite, you know, gets eaten up quite a lot, so it's all about managing that tomorrow, but I hope that with the setup that we have on the car now, it will be a bit better.
What do you see as the biggest challenge? Who's the biggest threat behind you on the grid?
I mean, it's all very close behind, and you could see in the sprint, well, I mean, Mercedes, McLaren and Ferrari, they were all quick, so, and now it seems like we are in that mix, and I hope tomorrow as well.
All right, so we're poised for a great race. Well done, Max. Good luck tomorrow.
I think we are poised for a really great race, Sam. It is fine margins. Verstappen, Russell strong. The McLarens were good in the sprint, and the Ferraris weren't too far away either. It's going to be a hard one to call for tomorrow.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting grid, isn't it? I think Max Verstappen, George Russell, Lando Norris lining up at the front is very tasty. You've got the Ferraris lining up behind the McLarens. They'll be desperate to get in front of the McLarens and try and chip away at the lead that McLaren have got, but whether their pace allows it or not, I don't know. Fernando Alonso inside the top 10, he could definitely upset some people on the opening couple of laps and get himself maybe in the top 6 with a good couple of moves. You know what Fernando Alonso is all about, and pulling great moves at the start of races. It's shaping up really, really nicely.
It really is. Well, we'll see you tomorrow then. Thank you, Sam Bird. Thank you, Andrew Benson. Thank you to Rosanna Tennant as well. Max Verstappen will line up on pole for the Qatar Grand Prix. Alongside him will be George Russell, Norris and Piastri are the top 4 ahead of the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Then Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes is 6th ahead of Carlos Sainz, 7th. Alonso 8th, Perez in 9th, and Kevin Magnussen rounding out the top 10 for Haas. Gasly is 11th ahead of Joe. Bottas, Tsunoda, Stroll the top 15. Alex Albon 16th ahead of Liam Lawson. Nico Hulkenberg is 18th ahead of Franco Colapinto, and Esteban Ocon will line up 20th and last for Alpine. We're going to be debriefing all of qualifying and a bit of the sprint race as well, what we saw earlier in the Checkered Flag podcast, which will be in your feeds in a couple of hours time and on BBC Sound, so do look out for that one. And you can join us for the racing action, 57 laps over on 5 Sports Extra tomorrow. Build up from 3:45 in the afternoon, lights out from 4 o'clock. We shall see you then. But for now, this has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.